When I turned 16, I had trouble deciding on what job to get. I really wasn't excited to work at the typical fast food or retail job, but at that age, there weren't many options. I had done babysitting before, but only for my parents' friends. My mom suggested I should try to do it as a part-time job for other people as well, and with no other appealing options, I took her advice. There was a local babysitting company in my town that helped both babysitters find work and parents find babysitters. I had an interview and they approved me to start working there, which was a big help because I didn't know enough people personally to make enough money. I worked there for 2 months, and the only downside was that I almost always babysit for a different family. Mostly it was just parents going away for a special night or something, so they didn't have recurring work for me. I finally had one of the previous parents book another appointment with me. It was a single dad who took care of his daughter, Alyssa. All I remembered about him was that he didn't talk much. He had the next appointment scheduled from 6 to 10, so at 6 o'clock I pulled into his driveway and knocked on his door. He opened the door and gestured for me to come in. I stepped inside and Alyssa came from around the corner to say hi. Then the dad told me very specific, unusual instructions for the night. He said he would be back at exactly 10 p.m., but that I needed to leave a few minutes before that. I simply nodded and said okay, no problem. But after he left, I thought about it more. It was a bizarre request, and I didn't know why he would be so strict about that. Over the time I babysit Alyssa, we did all the usual things. We played a few games, watched some of her favorite shows, and ate a small dinner. At one point, she took a quick nap on the couch, and I decided to walk around the house. Not to be creepy or anything, but just to make sure everything was normal. The dad left me with a bad feeling, so it made me feel better to see that the house was normal. But thinking about it more, I didn't feel comfortable leaving the house before he got home. It didn't feel right, and he made it out to be a little bit creepy. So, come a few minutes before 10, I took Alyssa upstairs and got her ready for bed, then waited on the couch downstairs for the dad to come home. I knew he would probably give me a look or ask why I was still home, but I was sure that he would understand if I explained myself. I kept track of the time on my phone, and at exactly 10, I watched out the window at the driveway for him to come home. A few minutes passed and he still hadn't shown up. Then another 5 minutes and he still hadn't come home. This was only strange because he had been so clear about being home at exactly 10 and even wanted me to leave early. I was glad I stayed at this point because leaving Alyssa alone for more than a few minutes like he said would not have been safe. Once 20 minutes came and went, I tried to call him. The phone rang for a while, then he answered. "Hey, I just wanted to check in and make sure everything was okay. I'm still here waiting for you to come home," I said. There was a long pause. "I told you to leave before 10. Please, go home now." I didn't know how to respond, but then he added on, "I'm waiting for you to leave." I let out a shaky, "Okay," then hung up. Things were getting really creepy now, and I was not comfortable being in the house, but even less comfortable with leaving Alyssa alone in the house. I decided to call the police. I had no contact with the dad during the 10 minutes I waited for the police to come. But almost as soon as they arrived, the dad pulled into the driveway as well. I explained myself and everything strange that was going on, but the dad denied ever telling me to leave before he got home, or that he was waiting for me to leave. He claimed he was just running late, and that over our phone call he told me that he'd be home in a few minutes, nothing else. He allowed them to look around, but nothing came up. Nothing else happened, and they had me go home. They told me that even if I did have proof of what he'd said, they really couldn't charge him with anything unless it was linked to something else. It aches my heart knowing that Alyssa is still alone with her dad, who is definitely up to something. Otherwise, why would he try so hard to hide it? and lie about everything he told me. I babysit as a part-time job. I worked for a few different sites before I settled for Sitter City. This specific babysitting site allowed me to work the random hours that I wanted and not have to worry about being able to babysit on a set schedule every week. On a Saturday morning, I got a job from a family requesting me to babysit their 2 kids from 8 p.m. to 1 a.m. I worked mid-shift at my regular job that day, so this still worked for my schedule. Also, these late-night jobs are always the best because the kids usually go to bed between 9 and 10, so I'm left to just relax until the parents get home. I accepted the job, and that night I drove over and met the parents 10 minutes early. They introduced the kids, who were both very young boys, I think 5 and 6 years old. They told me to just make sure that they were in bed by 9:30, then they left. The 2 boys were both pretty shy and watched cartoons for most of the time. I'd say half of the kids I meet are just like this though. At 9:30, I turned off the TV and got them in bed without any problems, then went downstairs and sat on the couch. I had 3.5 hours to myself before the parents got back. I brought headphones to prepare for this, and put them in and started watching YouTube on my phone. I was tired, so I needed something to keep me busy so that I wouldn't fall asleep. Like I said, these late jobs are the best because it doesn't feel like you're even babysitting, but the hardest part of it is not falling asleep. By 11, I was really pushing myself to keep my eyes open. Watching videos on my phone was starting to make me even more sleepy, so I put my phone down and got up. I walked into the kitchen to pour myself a cup of water, then stood by the table while I sipped on it, hoping to wake myself up some more. Then I heard a voice. It was one of the boys upstairs calling for me. I put my water down and walked quickly up the stairs and into his room. It was the older of the 2. He was sitting up in his bed and looked really scared. "You okay?" I asked, sitting on the edge of his bed. He said in between his cries that he heard someone walking outside his room. I told him that it was okay and that nobody else was here, then tucked him back in. The other boy was in bed on the other side of the room, sleeping still, so I backed out of the room and closed the door quietly. I stuck my head into each of the rooms upstairs, making sure they were empty, then went back downstairs. I was sure the boy just had a nightmare. I got my cup of water and sat on the couch again. I was more awake now, so I guess that was a good thing. But then I heard it. Someone walking through the hallway upstairs. It sounded slow and careful, like they were trying to be quiet. I was terrified, but I had to keep the boys safe. I ran upstairs, but nobody was in the hallway. Then I opened the boys' room, and both of them were still asleep. I checked each of the rooms again, then went back downstairs. I was tired, and figured my mind was playing tricks on me. This time I took my phone out to keep me busy. Maybe a minute passed, when suddenly there were footsteps sprinting down the hallway upstairs. I ran upstairs, seeing nobody again, but this time, when I opened the boys' room, they were both sitting up in bed, looking terrified. I got both of them downstairs and into my car outside. I locked the car doors, then called the police and the parents. Both of the boys said they heard running footsteps outside their door, so I knew I wasn't just hearing things. When police came, they searched everywhere, but found no one. They didn't even find any signs of someone ever having broken in or staying anywhere inside. I don't know who or what we heard, but I know there was someone else upstairs. Needless to say, I never went back to their house to babysit. I used to babysit my younger brother a lot while growing up. I was 5 years older, so by the time I was 13 or 14, my parents were okay with me watching over him while they would go out. They would never leave us alone for too long though, never more than just a few hours at a time. This happened when my parents went to a work party together one night on the weekend. They left at 5 and told me they would be back before 9. They left us food in the fridge and told me to watch my brother and call if I needed anything. To me, watching my brother actually meant just making sure nothing happens to him or that he doesn't leave. I never actually sat there and watched over him and whatever he was doing. I'd help him turn on his favorite show and then go do whatever I wanted to do in the other room. Sometimes I would hang out with him, but our age difference made it hard for us to enjoy doing the same things. I was in my bedroom, which was still on the first floor, and my brother was in the living room when the doorbell rang. My parents had only been gone for an hour, so I knew it wasn't them. I got up and went to the front door. My brother was standing up in the living room, looking over at the door, and that's when I saw a man looking through the small side window on the porch. When he noticed me, he waved and pointed at the door as if to meet him there. I don't know if a lot of houses have these, but ours had 2 front doors. There was a main wooden door with a metal gate-like door in front of it. We always kept both locked. I opened the main door partially, but kept the gate door shut. I didn't know what to say, so I let him talk first.
"Hi, buddy. Are your parents home?"
he asked.
No, not right now. Sorry."
I said, thinking he was trying to sell something.
"Oh, thank you."
He said, turning and walking away. I closed the door and my brother asked who it was. I said it was just some random guy, then went back into my room. I really forgot about it and didn't think of it for a while. I made food for us a while later, then turned a show on for my brother and went back to my room to play on my console. But then I heard the front door open. I got up, confused and a little frightened. But before I could make it down the hall and over to the door, I heard the metal door unlock and open. I saw my little brother standing in the doorway, and that same man from earlier stepping inside our house. I didn't know what to do. The man greeted me again, but I didn't respond. I think I was in so much shock, I was just staring at him blankly. He faced my little brother and knelt down, starting to whisper something to him, and that's when I started moving over to my brother. The man then tried to put his arms around him, like he was trying to pick him up, but I quickly grabbed my brother's arm and pulled him back. The man eased off, putting his hands up like he wasn't doing anything.
"Don't worry, buddy. I just want to show him something. You can come too if you want. It's right outside,"
he said with a friendly smile that was very creepy at the moment. I backed up, holding my clueless brother close to my side.
"Please leave,"
I said, trying hard not to cry. He was still smiling, trying to act nice and caring.
"I called the police already. Please just go."
The man's whole attitude and face changed as soon as I said that. His smile went away and was replaced by anger and frustration. He took a step closer, and I yelled at the top of my lungs, screaming for help. The man backed up quickly and rushed out the front door, driving away in his truck. I called my parents right away, and they called the police for me. While we waited for everyone to show up, I yelled at my brother for letting the man in. He was crying and told me that the guy wanted to give him something. I knew my brother was too young to understand, but my emotions were taking over me, and I still yelled at him. The police made it first, and then my parents. They yelled at me for not watching over my brother. The man was seen on a neighbor's doorbell camera leaving our house and driving away, but it was too dark to get any identity from the video. We were all sure, though, that the man had been watching us for a while, trying to find the perfect time to kidnap us. He got really close, but thankfully after that day, he never tried anything else.